Hi, it's me, Ken Curtis. I tried to give you a post about treason a little while ago. I like to show that Bambi deer right there. Uh, its mama got hit by a car. It was half out of its mama. Happened right in front of me, and I tried to snatch it out and wipe the slime from it and blow into it. I was going to carry it to the local game ranch and save it, but as you can see, I wasn't successful. Anyway, I like to show that every time I come on so people know who I am. Even when I change my look or hair color or style, I don't change my hair color, but it bleaches out in the summer. So anyway, my whole point for being here today is because I tried to do a post on treason the other day, and I've done another one today, and every time I try to do a post on treason, and I'm talking about not the treason that these media outlets throw around, because that's not treason. Matter of fact, I don't believe most of these young kids in the media outfits even know what treason really is. And I'll go into that real quick for you so that you can understand what it is I'm saying. Okay, treason was something that our founding forefathers had a lot of trouble with the Old English oligarchs. And because of that, they didn't want it to be something that would be committed easily. As a matter of fact, it's downright hard to commit treason in America. And I'll go into that as I go into the explanation of treason. Which is why I like to, just for the sake of, people understanding, if nothing else, so they'll shut up about treason unless it actually is treason, because people don't know, they really don't. And so I'm going to go into it real quick with you. The main criteria for treason given to us through our constitutional rights and values. Okay. First of all, there has to be an act of war. An act of war originally had to be implemented by the Congress. And later on, after Pearl Harbor, I believe, they decided that an act of war could also be implemented by the executive branch, providing it was backed up with appropriations by Congress. So currently, we're under two acts of war. One would be the war on drugs, and that was enacted by Ronald Reagan, and I'm having a hard time with my seat. I'm a little bit crippled in my old age, and so I have a hard time. Anyway, Ronald Reagan decided that he would enact war on drugs. Congress agreed, and they appropriated $470 billion. That number is climbing. So we definitely have that one act of war that has never been changed. It's still an act of war on drugs. We all know. Okay. Which is why Trump's probably not too wrong about the fact that he says that people that get caught smuggling drugs into America, maybe they should be tried for treason. However, that let me get into why that's probably not being done, and I'll say that in such a way that'll make it very clear to you. There's another act of war that we're currently under, and that's the War on Terror. That was enacted September 14th of 2001, and it was done by G.W. Bush, who added the comment, "You're either with us or against us." So it's basically an act of war that was definitely, appropriations by Congress to back it up, and it also had that stipulation, "You're either with us or against us." So keep that in mind as we go on. Okay, so you had to have an act of war, and then the perpetrators of war have to do two things. One is they have to aid and comfort or evade the enemy during wartime. And that can be stuff like giving out troop positions, or arming the enemy, or there's a lot of different ways that you could inhibit one's ability to defend themselves. Okay, and that's the other stipulation of treason. Uh, we we do that in such a way so that, sometimes they do covert operations just so they can, trace it down. It's kind of like that Fast and Furious with the guns. They wanted to be able to trace the guns down and see whose hands they ended up in. So even though that might have fallen under treason under the act of war, they had a pretty good reason for doing it. So, that's it's one of them things. And that kind of falls in suit with, and I hate to say it, but there's a lot of things that have been done over the years. Ooh, I got a bad hip and it popped out of joint on me. But there's a lot of things that have been done over the years. One of those things was G.W. Bush actually, you ended up seeing, Barry Kraft and taking pictures of Pablo Escobar on the big cargo plane and all that, And of course they left him out to dry because a federal judge said, no, you're going to have to be at this location at this time. And, if you watch American Made, at the end of that movie, they show a couple guys with shotguns coming up to him. There were 47 Colombian nationals that had automatic weapons. There wasn't one square inch of his body that didn't have a bullet hole in it. That's how they repaid him for working with the CIA. They wanted to shut him up because he had a whole bunch of tapes that he had made in the trunk of that car. And they found those tapes, and that's how American Made became a movie, because they knew what it was that he had said and how he ended up in that situation to start with. The gringo that could get it done, But you can see how Bush might have said, well, look, these drugs and this money could fall into the hands of the communists, or we can, pretend we're doing this operation for a while and maybe be able to nail down some of the evildoers. And whether that actually happened or not is a matter of debate. But anyway, getting back to treason and what's considered treason under the current statute, which is from our Constitution. And like I said, the reason they did what they did was, one, there has to be an act of war. Two, the person that perpetrates the treason has to aid and abet the enemy in a fashion that could inhibit America from being able to defend themselves. You get that? That's why 90% of the people that throw treason around, they don't know what they're talking about. Because if you're not inhibiting America's ability to defend itself, it's not treason. That's constitutional, just so you know. So I'm going to go into some of the recent history, and I'm going to try to stay away from the obvious. Some of it's pretty obvious. The Benghazi debacle, for one, that may have had good intentions to start with, which is to say that Gaddafi was, starting a whole new monetary system with the gold dinar. And let's face it, the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers and all of those people behind Hillary Clinton, that wasn't going to go. That wasn't going to fly. So something had to be done, which, in my opinion, is treason in itself. But anyway, what happened during that was Hillary needed rebels. Valerie Jarrett, who was one of Obama's most close confidants, who also happens to have family that's high up in the Iranian government, which is why I believe that when Obama called ISIS his JV team, that was actually code. If you mirror Valerie Jarrett's initials, JV, VJ, you get it? I just think that, we all know now. If you don't know that Obama was Muslim by now, then you're just in denial, because he is definitely Muslim. He's misspoke on at least 10 different occasions where he says, my Muslim, Christian religion. He's misspoke about his wife, Michelle. I think it's funny because we really don't care if he was gay and had a transvestite wife or something. America doesn't care about that stuff. Even the conservative Americans, really, we don't care what you do in your bedroom. Those of us that are religious, hey, one sin's no different than another. We don't care about that stuff. We never have cared about that stuff. That's between you and God. Why is it that the left, and I'm not saying the liberals, because believe me, the liberals are center-based, kind of like conservatives are center-based. I'm a constitutionalist. I voted for Obama the first time. and I voted, on both sides of the ticket. I voted for Bush. Boy, didn't I ever regret that when I found out he was dealing drugs. But that's, like I said, maybe they had their reasons. Maybe they wanted to make sure that revenue didn't fall into the hands of the communists. There's all kinds of things that we don't know that they do know, and that sort of thing. So we have to take some of those things into consideration. But what I'm about to tell you, there really is no excuse for it, and let me get into it. Okay, so in order to commit treason, one has to aid and abet the enemy. I get it. All right, you aided and abetted Iran with their nuclear ambition. Okay, you thought, well, okay, we'll make deals with Iran, and they'll make this pipeline that goes across Europe, and it'll be great for Europe, and it'll be great for everybody, and everything will work out just fine, and et cetera, et cetera. Only one problem. In order for Muslims and Christians to get along, or even non-Christians, because Muslims view non-Christians the same way they do Christians as infidels. So in order for Muslims to get along with Jewish people or Christians or non-Christians, they have to be on board. See, your fantasy utopian garden, the flower of common sense doesn't grow there. Why? Because in 1,400 years of history, name one time where Christians and Muslims were actually able to get along, where they didn't try to impose their belief systems and their laws, their Sharia law, on the people. Name one time. You can't, because it's never happened. And that's the problem with bringing Muslims into America. Now, don't call me a racist, because first of all, Muslims are not a race. It's a religion. And worse than that, it's not even a religion. It's really it's an indoctrination set up to overpower less tolerant governments until they become into power. So they're real tolerant, and if, look, in order to understand, I'm just going to shut up, okay? But I'm going to ask you to do one thing. Look up posts by Claire Lopez, ex-CIA, on YouTube. And when you do that, she's going to have a lot of different reading material that is basically the Quran translated into English. And so, until you're as informed as I am, I can't even have this conversation with you because you have the indoctrination of what the main six, because there's about six of them that control all the media in America. And so you have their indoctrination, and you can't really have a discussion about what I'm talking about until you've understood exactly what the Quran says, exactly what the Quran is, exactly how they say the different things that they say. That's why Obama pretended to be Christian. Now let me tell you something. In the Quran, to pretend to be Christian is only allowed one way. That's if you're a jihadist and you're looking for caliphate. You can't just switch religion, because guess what? That's punishable by death. So he couldn't go from being a Muslim to a Christian. And he openly said, if it comes down to between Christians and Muslims, he's going to side with the Muslims. Well, what does that tell you? That he's really a Muslim. Nothing. Like I said, I got a Muslim friend I hunt with. He still thinks I'm the dirt on his shoe because I'm an infidel. But I mean, he's a good guy and all. But I don't doubt for 1 minute that he wouldn't mind a radical Muslim come on and cut my head off. I mean, I'm just saying that's how they believe. And we've had long conversations late at night at the hunting camp. And believe me, I know how they think. I learned. And I after learning from him, I decided I'm going to really learn. I'm going to read the Quran. I'm going to find out what it says. And what I found was quite shocking, actually. It's like night and day from Christianity. It's completely night and day. You know, Christianity says, forgive 7 times 70. It says, get slapped, turn the other cheek. It says, pray for your enemy. It says, love your enemy. But it also says something else. It says, gate your city and don't mess with your neighbors. This is where Bush made mistakes. And now those chickens are coming home to roost. Now let me explain how badly they're coming home to roost. So Obama took $1.7 billion to the known terrorists of Iran. Why do I call them known terrorists? 57 hostages held for almost 500 days. Not just any hostages, our embassy employees. And Jimmy Carter tried to extract them because he got intel about where they were. But they botched it because our helicopters really needed to be retrofitted for the fine sand, and they weren't. And so the helicopters had real problems when they went to do the rescue attempt, and they had to abort that. And of course, after that happened, they moved all the hostages around, and our intel didn't know where they all were, and so on and so forth. Reagan did something that was brilliant. The reason Jimmy Carter didn't want to negotiate with them was because they were terrorists. America doesn't negotiate with terrorists, right? And so Reagan did it covertly. He didn't let anybody know what he was up to, but he sent a bunch of arms. This was documented with, when they went into Oliver North's office and they were shredding the documents, and it proved that, yes, the arms deal took place. So it was a covert operation that Reagan agreed to. He got Oliver North to do it for him, to set it up and do it. And what they did is they took the arms to Iran to get the hostages released. But Reagan was a little bit savvy. So what he did is just as soon as those hostages got released, he made a bunch of announcements on TV and stuff, telling people that the State Department says, get out of Iran, don't go to Iran. It doesn't matter how much money they're offering you, if you're an engineer building buildings, or you're an engineer building dams, or if you're an engineer working on this or that or the other. It doesn't matter how much money they offer you, do not go to Iran. Well, then right after that, he froze their assets. So basically, the money that they lost by giving the arms to Iran in order to pay for the hostages, he froze those assets. That's what makes me really mad when I hear these. And then, you know what? When I look at their posts and I go back and look, they're almost always Iranian. Oh, that was Iranians' money, not Americans' money. That's why Obama gave it back to Iran. No, it wasn't. It would be like me holding a knife to your child's throat, right? And telling you, hey, sign this contract or I'm going to cut your kid's head off. Is that contract legitimate? Well, neither was the contract made with Iran. You get it? It's that simple. So he froze their assets. And then Obama unfreezes them, adds interest to it, and gives it back to them. Act of treason number 1. Why? Because that one act alone got a lot of our guys over there in the Middle East killed. Okay, here, you thought that was bad? This is even worse. Our DEA had been investigating the Hezbollah terrorists dealing drugs in America. They had them under investigation since before 2009. The Iran deal didn't go down till around 2013, 14, somewhere in there. I'm not sure exactly what year it was, but anyway. When Obama made the Iran deal with Iran made a contingency of that deal. And that was that Obama stopped our DEA bust, not investigation now, they were ready to bust them, of Hezbollah terrorists dealing drugs in America. Now, all you need to know to understand the consequences of what he did there are two things. One is they have the World Almanac, right? Well, that's now online with the cheap app. You can get that online with the cheap app, and you can look back way past 2009 on, and you can see how those drug overdoses over the years have progressed. Okay, and then you can look at about the same time Hezbollah started dealing drugs in America to today, and you can see that what's happened since 2009. 500,000, most of them kids too young to understand the consequences of their actions, let alone the concept of weaponized drugs. They were given weak opioids by the same source dealer, right? As soon as they get them good and hooked on weak opioids, boom, overnight, they give them 100 times stronger fentanyl. Our paramedics say it best. They say they've never seen anything like it. The people that run the morgues will tell you the same thing. Whole regions of kids are dropping like flies. Why? Because they were given a weak opioid, and then boom, overnight, it was switched to 100 times stronger fentanyl. So strong, in fact, that our paramedics with gloves on have even overdosed just from handling the victim's body. When they got a needle half in their arm where they put a little bit in there and they still have the drug inside that needle, they test that. There's enough fentanyl in that needle to kill 50 grown men. Now, I told you all you need is a couple of things. One was the World Almanac to show you these statistics that I'm telling you are true. The other thing is something called common sense. What drug dealer would work such a sinister plan to kill their own customers? You see? It doesn't make sense. Isn't the obvious point of being a drug dealer to have living, paying customers? One of the guys from the morgue said it best. He said it just as plain as it could be said. He said, this is a new form of war. And he's right. They're having to rent reefer trucks just to hold the bodies when these whole regions of kids get killed. And of course, there's another Hezbollah terrorist setting up shop near a junior high school near your kids. So, look, if we don't get on top of this, let me ask you this. Has 500,000 kids died since 2009 hindered our ability to protect America? Think about us getting hit from 2 or 3 fronts at the same time in a war and having to enact a draft. Has it hindered our ability to protect America when 90% of those kids that are dead are military-age kids? You see? So, yes, it fits the criteria of treason. The criteria of treason is you have to aid and obey the enemy in such a way that it hinders America's ability to defend itself. Done. So, I voted for Obama. Does that make me an accomplice? Did I racketeer with him? No, because I didn't know what he was up to. None of us did. He was going to Eric Robert Wright's church, pretending to be Christian. How are we supposed to know he was Muslim? Well, we should have done some due diligence. And we should have asked some really serious questions when there was a whole bunch of covering up of his past history and stuff. And we certainly should have took notice when Louis Farrakhan with Jubilee was on posts going, "White man's going down." Because that's the true racism in America. It's not conservatives. We're not racist. I'm a conservative. My granddaughter dates a black kid. How am I racist? Anyway, I love y'all. God bless y'all. If you have the ears to hear and the eyes to see, please, Jesus, wake them up. Please wake them up. They need to hear it. They need to see it. They need to understand it. And they need to somehow do something to help prevent it. And I'm going to tell you the main thing you can do right now. Have the conversation with your children about weaponized drugs. That's the main thing you can do. And when you look at that post that they have about Seattle is dying, think about what I just was talking about. God bless y'all. Please, please, people, do the right thing. You know what the right thing is. We'll see you on the next flip.